City Files, written by Jane Selman. Introduction. Thousands of years ago, people discovered on how to use to keep themselves warm and cook their food. But since that time, fire had occasionally escaped our control and ravaged our own purpose, killed hundreds of people and cost millions of dollars in property damage each year. People have used fire as a weapon, from burning pots of journalism during the Crusade to firebombing German cities during World War II. But most city fires, large or small, are caused by human accident and unsafe conditions. Unfortunately, misfortune is often the best teacher. Victims of city fires become aware of the need for safety, fire prevention, and firefighting, for only the flame went out after a great fire in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians invented a water pump and organized a bucket water down the line of people to the fire. Terrible fire in Rome, London, and Chicago caused great destruction. Yet I resort in new ways to prevent and fight fires. Great Year of London. 1600 years later, people in other parts of the world hadn't made much progress by improving life or preventing fires. Thousands of years ago, people discovered how to use fire to keep themselves warm and cook their food. But since then, fire has occasionally escaped control and ravaged your homes and cities. Arsonist people who set fire on purpose kill hundreds of people and cause millions of dollars in property damage each year. People have used fire as a weapon, from firebombing German cities during World War II. But most city fires, large or small, are caused by human accident and unsafe conditions. Unfortunately, misfortune is often the best teacher. Victims of city fires became aware of the need for safety, fire prevention, or firefighting only after the flames were out. After a great fire in ancient Egypt, the Egyptians invented a water pump, organized brigades in which volunteers passed buckets of water down the lines of people to the fire. Terrible fires in Rome, London, and Chicago caused great destruction, yet they resulted in new ways to prevent and fight fires. Great Fire of London. 1600 years later, people in other parts of the world hadn't made much progress in improving daily life or preventing fires. In London in 1666, people dumped garbage in the streets, considered bathing important. Rats carrying bubonic plague infested most buildings, and the flea spread disease by biting people. Thousands had died from buildings that fudge roofs that had been so close together that the upper stories jutted over the narrow street, almost touching. Still, living in London must have been exciting. A person might get a glimpse of the King, Charles II, riding through town, see a good play, or relax in a coffee house among local celebrities. For a few pennies, one could buy a fresh warm roll at the shop of the Thomas Farrinor, the King's baker in Pudding Lane, on the evening of September 1st, 1666. Thomas Farrinor had finished work, put out the cook fire, so he thought. Around 1 in the morning, a spark of one of the ovens landed on a wood pile and set it ablaze. Thomas walked to the fire. His family and servants tried to leave the house, but cloud smoke came up the stairs. They climbed out an attic window and jumped across the roof to the next door. Neighbors grabbed buckets from a nearby building, trying to put me out. It was soon out of control. Many picked up what they could carry and took their families to safety. Yet the fire still could have been stopped, or at least slowed. A fire hook along pole could have pulled building materials out of the fire's path to make a fire break. However, Major Thomas Bloodworth didn't think the fire was serious enough for such a drastic action, and so the fire continued to spread. Despite all his effort, many Romans believed that Nero had started the fire in order to build a city in honor of himself. To avoid being blamed, he led people to believe that Christians had set the fire. This was used as an excuse to persecute or mistreat the Christians. The Romans did learn from the fire. They made sure a huge supply of water would always be close by, constructed new buildings from stone instead of wood, and even filled with marshy areas with weren't depressed. A new city of wider streets and safer homes took the place of the old. Great Fire of London. 1600 years later, people in other parts of the world did not have much progress in improving daily life or preventing fire. In London in 1666, people dumped garbage in the street and considered bathing unimportant. Blistering bubonic plague infested most buildings, and the flea spread the disease by biting people. Thousands had died from the plague in the year before the fire. Wooden buildings that thatched roofs had been placed so close together that the upper story jutted over the narrow street, almost touching. Still, living in London must have been exciting. A person might get a glimpse of the King Charles II riding through town. Wait, I read this already. The roar of the flames in the wind must have terrified those fleeing the fire. The fire reached a warehouse full of rope, paper, and other flammable products. A maid alerted Samuel Pepys, a government official, to the spreading fire. The alarm Pepys spread off to tell the king. King Charles sent soldiers and militiamen to fight the fire. He set up the fire post with food, water, and equipment. Trained militiamen gathered at those posts to help out. Charles put the Duke of New York in charge of the firefighting effort. The Duke and his men created a fireplace by pulling down the houses in the path of the fire and using gunpowder to blow up large buildings. Finally, the fire burned out and stopped. Records state that only 9 people died in the fire. Out of those, Thomas Fainas made, but the number is probably much higher. Many of the percent of the city have been destroyed, including 87 churches and more than 13,000 homes. 10 cities sprang up where refugees of the fire had gathered. Organized charity such as such Red Cross didn't yet exist, so the people relied on family, neighbors, churches, and employers for help. King Charles put architect Christopher Wren von Evelyn in charge of rebuilding the city. This plan replaced wood with brick and built wider streets and more space between houses, but the rebuilding took years to complete. St. Paul's Cathedral was not finished until 1712, 46 years after the fire. New laws require businesses and property owners to clean the streets and walkways free of garbage. But the fire was a terrible price to pay to improve the living habits of 100,000 wanderers. Chicago fire. Chicago in late 1800s really busted its stockyards, where livestock was slaughtered and processed into meat, supplying much of the nation with food. Travelers crossing the country often stopped for a visit, and the city boasted the fine restaurants and hotels, entertainment, big stores, and museums. Families could visit one of the beaches along Lake Michigan or go to the stockyards came from cattle coming in the west. Like Rome and London, Chicago had its share of slums, neighborhoods with poorly built wooden houses close together. Housing inspection was lax and warehouse, not bound by the fire code of the kind of flammable material. However, Chicago did have a professional, though very overworked fire department. The summer of 1871 had been one of the driest anyone could remember. Only about 3.8 centimeters of rain fell between the 4th of July and early October, dead leaves dropping off dying trees, and the firefighters became exhausted lightning. The small fire that sprang up around the city on the evening of October 8, 1871, a spark ignited way in the cathedral already burned on the devoted street. The fire should have been put out quickly, but the night the firefighter went to the wrong address, and the fire rapidly traveled to the building. The winds made Chicago famous as the Windy City had spread the fire before. Had spread the fire before anyone could stop it. Even Chicago River covered with an oily fume caught fire. Then the gasworks and the plant that pumped for gas hitting the light went up in flames. Travelers fled in hotels, and residents gathered their children. Many headed toward gathered their children. Lake Michigan, in hope of escaping, beaches became overcrowded with fleeing people. Hot thunder and smoke fell from the sky as the audible noise of the fire mingled with the sound of church bells, warning people in other parts of the town. The smoke was so thick that people could not see a block in front of them. Wind and fire combined to make a firestorm, or a superheated wind that spread flame wherever it blows. Chunks of burning debris were picked up and flung down by opposing buildings, floating oil, fabric, and kerosene. Everything that would make the fire worse. Brave people, professional firefighters as well as citizens, stayed to the battle, the fire, and rescued the helpless. But the flame destroyed even the water pumping station, blocking the effort of the fire department. The luxurious hotels and the humble house all fell in the flames as the fire burned for 3 days. Buildings not ready on the fire were blown to keep up with the fire to create fire breaks. Then, on October 10th, rain failed to help the firefighters extinguish the flame. The fire finally ended. Though everyone was relieved, they soon realized their loss. About 300 people had died, others remaining missing. People's home, possession, and workplace were gone. Dust and ash filled with air. An area of the city remained too hot to enter. Federal troops commanded by General Philip Sheridan arrived to prevent looting. People sent supplies and volunteered to Chicago, and fortunate survivors collected food and clothing for the homeless. The Chicago Relief and Aid Society opened homeless shelters, and later provided materials for the building of temporary houses. Business owners set up tables or court and got back to work, while many left the city as soon as possible. Most stayed to rebuild. The rebuilding went rather slowly. People resisted to making changes that would prevent another fire, but gradually they realized the need for stricter building and the prevention rules. They built safer houses, and officials improved the fire department. Again, people have learned a hard lesson. Conclusion. Today, we are lucky to live in a time when fire safety is given great importance. The areas of the world have strict fire codes and professional volunteer department trains in fire prevention, firefighter and life-saving techniques. Buildings that have fire alarms and sprinkler systems and firewalls are built between houses. People have learned from schools and media what to do to prevent fire and how to plan for emergency. Even with all this effort, terrible fires still occur. Firefighting, we hope to never see one like Rome, London, and Chicago ever again.
Good job.